Welcome to today's session of 20 for 20 in 2020, a special series that I've created to introduce you to professionals who will help you make decisions in your life. So I've included 20 professionals in the areas of attorneys, accountants, financial advisors, realtors, and more. And I'm asking them 20 questions, and I hope to get through this all before the end of 2020. And this will help you make some good decisions about what you need to think about when you're interviewing professionals. So let me introduce myself. I'm Ella Newman. I'm a trusted insurance advisor with the Norton Advisory Group, and I work on specializing in helping people with terrific solutions that will make a difference when they're working on their estate planning, business succession, retirement, long-term care, and other insurance planning needs in their lives. And at the end of our program, I'm hoping you'll hang in there. I want to tell you some important things about what's going on in insurance in your lives. And in the meantime, I want to introduce our guest for today, Jean Chou, who is an attorney, who is the founder and principal of her own firm, and that is JLC and Associates in Manhattan. And she specializes in real estate and contract law. And Jean and I met as a result of some of the changes that have taken place as a result of the pandemic. We were on a video networking call with someone we both know, and we realized there were some things we wanted to learn more about each other and started communicating, and that led us to where we are at the moment. So I'm going to be asking Jean these questions. First, let me say, how has this pandemic and the craziness in our universe impacted you? How are you doing?
Thank you, Ella. I'm doing fine. You know, everything this year has taught us all about flexibility and quick shifts. So can't complain, and just going with the flow.
Great. Okay, so we'll get started on our 20 questions. The first question is, what is the primary focus of your practice?
Sure. So my practice, we're a small team. There's 9 of us, and we primarily handle residential and commercial real estate transactions. So I would say bulk of our clientele are buying or selling real estate in New York City. And the commercial sphere, we have a lot of small business clients where they need workouts around commercial leasing or co-op and condo board representation as well.
Great. Now, what led you to this particular career path?
That's such a big, loaded question, but it's interesting. I actually started this practice with less than a year out of law school over a decade ago. And so I always had an interest in real estate. I had a lot of contacts in the real estate industry when I launched the practice. So I started off representing lenders initially in their mortgage closings. And that very quickly led to more purchase transactions from within my network, which then led into broader spheres of some of the commercial work that we also do. So I think just inherently a love for real estate in the city, and from that we've just been able to build a good referral base.
That's great. Now, how did you decide to create your own firm? When did you do that?
Yeah, so I was working for a trust and estates firm actually before I launched my practice. And initially, I think the first handful of clients I had were all housing court matters, landlord-tenant matters. I believe it was in Queens Housing Court. And part of the reason why I don't handle housing court matters now is you had that experience at the very beginning. But when I started the practice, I actually had a handful of friends looking to buy in the Williamsburg area at that time. And that was when you could still purchase a condo for $300,000, $400,000 in Williamsburg. Totally unheard of. And that really led into me leaving that prior firm and then launching my my own practice.
That's helpful. So what would you say have been some of the highlights in your career experience?
Oh boy. Highlights in my career, to be honest, as difficult as this year has been for everybody, it is absolutely a highlight in some ways because it's easy to thrive and grow when you have a foundation pre-COVID where the economy was growing, New York City real estate was growing, and it's much more of a challenge. Requires, I think, a lot more strategic brainstorming and teamwork to still continue a growth business plan in the middle of a pandemic and an election year. So this year has certainly been a highlight, largely due in part to my really great team as well.
Mhm. That's good to know. And so what type of clients do you tend to work with mostly?
I would say majority of our clients are probably families that have been looking to upgrade or they need more space. We have a lot of young professionals as well. Almost half of our clients now are also repeat clients. So we tend to attract a lot of investor clients where they may be purchasing multiple properties and then separately just need real estate advice for their portfolio.
Mhm. So what are some of the problems or issues that you've been able to address with your clients?
What comes to mind the most, especially this year, or was the financial insecurity that a lot of clients had. And I would say, for the most part, a lot of that might have happened more when shutdown first occurred. So in the second quarter, some of our clients who were in the middle of a contract, were in the middle of the purchasing process, who then suddenly either lost their job or had the fear of some type of pay cut. Navigating the clients out of those issues have been a very hot topic, in particular this year.
Mhm. Understood. That's clearly been a concern for so many people. And so now, how you've been in the real estate law practice for how long? And again, want to highlight sort of the areas that you like to specialize in?
Sure. I've been practicing for, I was 10 years in May, so a little over 10 years now, in the real estate law field. And in terms of our specialties, I mentioned bulk of our clients are purchasing residential properties that may be co-ops, condos, townhouses. And in the commercial sphere, a lot of our clients, when they buy into those buildings, they also become a member of the board. So we'll represent the actual boards of those buildings. One of our largest clients, they are a close to 1,000 unit complex in Queens. And we represent the board in that complex as well.
Mhm. Um, what are some of the types of real estate cases that you've gotten involved in and been able to handle?
We recently just obtained a client where they are in the middle of converting a townhouse in West Village. It was actually previously a multifamily, 11-unit building that they're converting into a single-family home. They're actually now in the process of selling that transaction, and it touches upon a lot of various legal issues because it's not fully completed in construction. There's some paperwork required from the city, so we're helping that client navigate those so they can sell the townhouse before end of the year.
Hmm, that sounds like a very interesting project.
Mhm.
Mhm. So in terms of your staff, do you have a skills staff that uh, works with you, and how do they get involved?
Sure. So, including myself, we have 4 attorneys in the firm, and then we have 5 support staff. So that might consist of paralegals, a law clerk, and our office support as well, our office manager. And all of them have had real estate experience, like the attorneys and paralegals, I should mention. And the other two attorneys, one has been licensed, Liz, for just as long as I have, so she's been practicing for a little over 10 years as well. And Allison is, I think she's on her 6th year, so also senior. And then we actually have a new associate who is a 1st year, Jason, who started with me this year. So yeah, they're absolutely skilled and they're great at what they do.
That's terrific. Sounds like a strong team. Now, when you're working with clients, do you provide them with a cost estimate?
Absolutely. That's often the very first question that a client will come to us with. And it is very subjective because a lot of the cost estimates rely on obviously purchase price, financing, whether it's a co-op versus condo, new development versus resale. So we always give a very specific cost estimate of closing costs and then legal fees with those clients.
I'm sure that's important to those clients.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like to work with you initially and in the long run?
I think that's in the real estate world in the city. We try to position ourselves, I think we do it pretty well, as really an advisor throughout that real estate process. And I think every lawyer will say that, but we really excel on service. A lot of times real estate transactions can sometimes just feel like a very short-term item, but we treat every single client, every matter in a very custom way, and from that very first call. So generally when a client first calls, I'm speaking to them for about 30 minutes, sometimes even an hour, just about the nuances of the process. From that point on, generally they'll then receive an initial cost estimate, an engagement letter, and once there's an accepted offer in place, they'll proceed with myself and my team to conduct any due diligence for their purchase.
Mm-hmm. That's very helpful. So then, how do you determine your fees and what would they include?
So with our fees, a typical residential transaction and commercial transaction as well
Mm-hmm.
would be based on a fixed fee, flat fee rate. Most real estate attorneys in the city would charge a flat rate. I would actually caution against some of the ones that bill on an hourly basis because you could very quickly rack up a bill. Our usual fixed fees, depending on the type of transaction, really range anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 for the most part. And again, it really depends on how much time we're expecting will be spent, depending on some of the other factors of the transaction.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's helpful. Do you offer a detailed action plan for your clients?
Yes, absolutely. So in our engagement letter, actually in 2 parts. So one, when the client first calls us, we'll always outline our initial role. It's very front end heavy on a residential purchase to conduct due diligence. And then we walk them through the time frame all the way through closing and even post closing. But then separately in the client's engagement letter, there's also an outline of the scope of services. So actually anybody who engages a flat fee attorney or fixed fee transaction should always make sure there's a very clear scope of services that informs the client what is included and any cost that might be triggered if it's out of scope.
Mm-hmm. That's very helpful. Uh-huh. Okay. What type of real estate transactions need an attorney and which do not?
I always say all real estate transactions are very prudent to have an attorney on board. And part of that reason, specifically in New York City, is because sellers require usually a 10% down payment up front. So I think if the client doesn't care about that 10% down payment that they're remitting up front, technically you can go without a lawyer, but I think it's really not smart to do that. There are certain provisions in a contract of sale that would potentially trigger forfeiture of that 10% deposit. And it's really prudent for an attorney to have reviewed all of those scenarios and also make sure that the transaction mirrors what the brokers have told the clients. Whatever the brokers have advertised is not legally binding. So I really highly encourage clients to always engage an attorney, and even an attorney that will say, okay, maybe you don't need us for this phase. Maybe you need us for another phase. I will say in some other states, a real estate attorney may not be required simply because that upfront payment is nominal. It might be $2,000 or $3,000. So the risk to a buyer is a lot lower in those states. So it's very locale specific as well.
Oh, interesting. Now, this is a little different. When are you not available?
Oh boy. I am, for the most part, always available. I am very communicative about my availability and I guess lack thereof with clients as well. Part of the reason why we always work in a team of 3, it's always myself and then another attorney and paralegal for each transaction, is because it's impossible for me to constantly have 100% attention on every single transaction. So we always have a backup plan if for some reason I am not available. Real estate transactions in the city tend to be very time sensitive. And so quite often things need to move fairly urgently. And so we're set up in a way where it's not just subject to my schedule.
That's a good comprehensive response. What are some other issues that your firm will address with clients besides real estate?
We've had a good number of clients that are required to sign architecture, interior design agreements when they start to renovate their homes. And oftentimes will be asked to review and negotiate those contracts. Mm-hmm. So it's still an offshoot of real estate in some facet, but that has come up quite often in the past. Mm-hmm. And I had mentioned for commercial leasing, which has been very taken a standstill, obviously, in this climate. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the commercial leasing clients that we work with, they tend to be on the tenant side. And so those will be, our scope would essentially involve negotiating the lease terms, getting an understanding of the client's business as well. So we can craft that.
Good. How long will it take you to complete the preparation of a real estate case?
So the standard real estate on the purchase side probably takes about 2 to 3 months, give or take, obviously depending on the actual transaction and the board, but 2 to 3 months is a pretty comfortable estimate. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of our specific role, when a buyer has an accepted offer, our due diligence probably takes the initial first week or 2. And then at the very tail end, when closings are occurring, we probably have about another week or 2 of preparation. And then throughout that whole 2 to 3 month time span, we're really serving as facilitator amongst the building, the lender, and the client.
That's comprehensive. What is a typical communication between you and a broker?
It really varies. I think the most common kind of communication is when a client has met with a broker, identified a home that they wish to purchase, or on the sell side, a home that they're selling. And when there's an accepted offer that's agreed to by the buyer and seller, the broker will then facilitate introduction between the attorney, our office, and the client. At that point, the ball's really in our court to make sure we're completing the legal scope after the transaction's in contract, and for most of that 2-month time frame, our role in communication with the broker becomes more as status updates, because they're helping clients with preparing board applications, providing access. So they're really supposed to be the client's on-the-ground partner with anything that might need to be facilitated in person. So our communications are more status update related, or if there's any issues, they'll communicate to us so we can probably negotiate that into contract form.
That sounds like a good partnership. Now, who in your office would discuss client issues if you're not available?
Most likely be one of my other two senior attorneys. So Allison, who I mentioned, she's been with me for about 7 or 8 years. She's our managing attorney. Or Liz, who has been with me for close to 3 years, but she's been licensed for over 10. So most likely Allison or Liz would be the go-to.
It sounds like you're well covered. So we've pretty much gone through almost all the questions. We're up to the last one, which is a bit different. This one, I'd like to have you tell us something about yourself that we would be unable to find on the internet.
Something about myself. I was going to mention my dog, but you can certainly find that on the internet. I'd say that my girlfriend is a former Olympic figure skater. So that is probably not as accessible on the internet. But yeah, and I have a 7-year-old Morkie pup that takes up quite a lot of other time when I'm not at the office.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that information with us. Now, we've learned a lot about you and your practice and your clients. Could you tell our audience what the best way is to contact you and to reach out to you?
Sure. Email is always best. My email is jcho@jlc-law.com, or by phone as well. So our office line, we always have someone manning the front desk. Is 212-380-6316.
Okay, that's terrific. Well, as I mentioned early on, I wanted to remind people that we are in the fourth quarter and approaching year end, and they need to think about their insurance concerns. And I would specifically say, because of this low interest rate environment, there's going to be a lot of repricing of insurance products, as well as a result of this current election and changes that are going to take place. That's going to have an impact on a lot of the strategies that they're going to be putting into place, whether it be estate planning or business succession planning. So what I'm offering is a fiduciary review of their insurance, and they can get that by contacting me at ella@nortonadvisorygroup.com. And then I will set up a virtual appointment and offer an opportunity to discuss those matters. In the meantime, I recommend strongly that people look at your website to get more information about your background and who you are and your firm, as well as looking at mine on nortonadvisorygroup.com. And this way they can learn even more about what we have to offer. Plus, this video, which we're doing right now, will be posted on LinkedIn and maybe at other sites as well. And I would welcome people to look for that and to look for future episodes of 20 for 20 in 2020 and use them as an opportunity to learn about everyone. And thank you, Jean, for joining me today.
Thank you, Ella.
Well, I thank you, and audience, I hope you all stay healthy, and I hope to see you again very soon. Thank you.